What if everything you've been told about writing a good screenplay is actually making your writing worse? You know, you hear all these techniques about solidifying an outline and little dialogue tricks or whatever, but they don't really help at all. So in this video, I'm going to show you what it actually takes to write a good screenplay, how to stop hating every word you write, and ultimately create a screenplay you're finally proud of. The answer came to me after this happened. A few weeks ago, my friend and I went to see a movie. We didn't know much about it, but it had these amazing reviews, so we figured, why not? About 20 minutes in, I felt myself shifting uncomfortably in my seat because the movie just dragged on so much. And I don't want to badmouth it, but it had all the right elements. It had defined characters, clear goals, compelling obstacles, but for whatever reason, it just didn't grab me. We stuck it out for a while. We just assumed it had to get better. But when we got to the 1 hour mark, I was so relieved when my friend finally turned to me and said, "Do you want to go?" For the first time in my life, I walked out of the theater in the middle of a movie. But I realized something. Even a movie that checks every box can still fail to connect with an audience. Not because it's bad, but simply because it just doesn't resonate. And this was a game changer for me, because if a film can have all the right elements and still not land with every single person who sees it, why should I agonize over trying to write something that's perfect? I mean, it's not like you see accountants hesitating to fill out an Excel spreadsheet because they're worried that they're going to get the numbers wrong. When you're writing your screenplay, you need to stop trying so hard to make it good. It is useless because at the end of the day, the only person who really needs to like it is you. And if you want my help writing a screenplay that meets your own standards, click the link below to work with me directly. The good news is that once you stop worrying about writing good, ironically, your writing actually improves because you stop filtering yourself and you just let your authentic creativity spill out of you. But there's a problem. How are you supposed to write a screenplay without worrying about it being good? I mean, isn't that the whole point? Let me give you an example. I used to go on runs a lot, and now I don't because, well, I'm already in really good shape. When I used to run, I used to do something that I've started actually applying to my scripts. I'd say, okay, I just need to make it to the end of this block. And then once I got there, I'd tell myself, okay, all right, now let me just make it to that tree over there. And I kept setting these tiny little goals until before I knew it, I made it all the way back home. Writing a screenplay is the same way. If you sit down on page 1 and you're worried about finding your producer or selling your screenplay for millions of dollars or winning an Oscar before you even start, you're going to overwhelm yourself. Instead, make your first goal simple. Just finish the page. That's it. And then once you get to page 2, you guessed it, make your goal page 4. Or page 3, whatever works for you. But before you know it, you will have finished the whole thing. But what if when you sit down to write, you're too afraid to even face the first page? I mean, all these thoughts start to surface. How hard writing is for you and how awful your screenplays feel. It's like you're trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more it pops right back up. Well, lucky for you, there's a way to overcome this. Remember the Truman Show? Truman just keeps trying to leave his town, but every possible obstacle stands in his way. There's traffic, a forest cactus on fire, and most of all, there's his fear of water. He's completely trapped. This is exactly what happens when you try to write something you don't like. You get an impulse to write, but then you stop yourself. You have thoughts come up like, that's stupid, or it's not good enough. And just like Truman, you stay stuck. So how does Truman escape? He faces his fear. He sails into the water, even though it terrifies him, and he gets out. This is exactly what you need to do with your screenwriting. Just like Truman is afraid of the water, you're afraid of writing a bad screenplay. But here's the truth. The problem isn't the bad screenplay. It's your fear of it. And the only way out is through. You need to voluntarily write a bad screenplay. But here's the thing. Fear doesn't just go away on its own. You can't ignore it. So how do you embrace it and move forward anyway? Here's a journaling exercise that helped me overcome, honestly, almost every fear I've ever had. If you're already part of my 101 coaching, you probably know where I'm going with this, but this is how it works. Start by writing down your fear. I'm afraid of writing a bad screenplay. Then ask yourself one simple question. Why? Why are you afraid of writing a bad screenplay? And answer this in as much depth as you possibly can. Maybe it's because you don't want to feel stupid. Maybe you're worried that your ex might read it and laugh at you. Once you've found the answer, ask yourself again, why? And just keep doing this again and again. I know that sounds silly, but if you keep asking why over and over, something amazing happens. You'll uncover the root of your fear and you'll realize that it's not real. Do you see how that would help you? The things you're afraid of, whether it's judgment or imperfection or rejection, they only really exist in your mind. And this won't sink in until you do it yourself. But once you're no longer afraid, your writing will flow in ways you never thought possible. But that only tackles the first half of this fear, because even though you've uncovered the root of it, you still have to eliminate it. So how do you do that? I want you to try something. Close your eyes and imagine you're standing on the roof of a 12-story building. Now, walk to the very edge, so close that if you take another step, you're gonna fall. See how far the ground is. Feel the wind rushing past you and notice how small the people look. Now open your eyes. Did you feel a little scared? Like you were actually standing there? That's because your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. As far as your brain is concerned, you were actually out on that rooftop. This is exactly what happens with writing. Your brain has learned to associate it with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of imperfection. And just like standing on that roof, you can't help but feel those negative emotions every single time you sit down to write. But here's the good news. Just like your brain learned to associate writing with fear, you can teach it to feel something completely different. From now on, when you sit down to write, I want you to replace fear with excitement. Instead of imagining disappointing an agent or boring your audience, imagine seeing your movie up on the big screen or shaking hands with an executive as you sell your screenplay. I know, earlier I said not to focus on the end result, but this isn't about the outcome. It's about the feeling. Visualize these moments with gratitude and excitement, not desperation. Just let yourself feel the pride and joy of success as though it's happening to you right now. But what if the real issue isn't fear or motivation? What if you've just convinced yourself that you just aren't capable of finishing a screenplay? Well, I'm going to show you how to destroy that belief right now. I used to struggle with this too. Every time I got close to finishing a script, this alarm would go off in my head. Like, whoa, stop, you can't do this. And I wouldn't. But then I noticed something. I did this in every area of my life. You know, I would leave books half read. I would skip songs halfway through. I'd even cut corners on brushing my teeth. The patterns were clear. I believed I never finished anything, and I knew I had to change that. So I just started small, and I'd force myself to finish every song I listened to, no matter how badly I wanted to skip ahead. And every time I got through a song, I would tell myself, I finish everything I start. Over time, this simple habit rewired my brain. It gave me evidence that I could finish things, even tough ones. And soon, I was finishing scripts the same way. So here's how you can do this. Find something simple that maybe you give up on early, like finishing a YouTube ad, wink, wink, or even a chore you hate. Push through, and when you finish, say out loud, I finish everything I start. This combination of action and affirmation builds evidence for your brain, and when you apply that same habit to your screenwriting, you'll find yourself powering through scripts. What do you do when you finally overcome your fear of writing badly, only to realize you have nothing to write about? Don't worry, because you're not alone. Whether you're staring at a blank page or you just feel completely uninspired, this video will help you tap into your creativity so you always have something to write about.